Continuing from where we left off, we're looking at the part C of the same problem. Measure the angle between the lines AB, and PQ. Here you have the line AB and the line PQ. What do you notice about the two gradients? Now pause the video and do the exercise. This icon should remind you that you need to work along with me. Great. Have we done so? Stop, look, listen, and learn. And do. Now, the thing to note here is that the angle formed by these two lines here is a right angle. It's 90 degrees. What that means, therefore, the gradient of AB is equal to 3, and the gradient of PQ will be 1 over minus 3. The gradient of AB is 3, and the gradient of PQ will be minus 1 over 3. And the gradients, when you multiply them, would give minus 1. Let me pause that and let me see. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, so the gradient of AB is 3. How we get the gradient? You remember the gradient is this line, this length over this length here. It's 9 over 3. Let me see, 11, 2 from 11, that's 9, and 1, 2, 3 is 3. The gradient of AB would be 3. And the gradient of PQ, is minus 1 upon 3. So when you multiply the gradient of AB by the gradient of PQ, you get negative 1. The product of the gradients of the two perpendicular lines will always be negative 1, unless one of the lines is horizontal and the other is vertical. So bear that in mind. Next thing to note is the gradient of PQ is negative 1 over the gradient of AB. Now if the gradient of a line is m and m is not equal to 0, then the gradient of a perpendicular line will be negative 1 over m. So you can replay this video any number of times to refresh your memory about the gradients of perpendicular lines.